Dollar. Dirt and money, no soul. Had to go and get it, ain't no time to kick it. Got a stack of flip for my foes. Dollar. Please tell me you can hear me. Don't turn your back and don't neglect me. Just let me know if you need me. Dollar. Let me watch out for my partners. Keep my money long, get my team strong. Let me run away from my problems.
Yo, what's good, original crew, man? We're back on the channel. Got another Mr. Ballen Lost episode. This is Lost episode number 8. The man's movie is the worst thing ever. Oh, this man's movie. Not why I say the man? You alright? You alright, Luka?
I'm trying to pop my heel.
Pop your heel? How you trying to pop your heel?
That's how I pop it sometimes. No, it works.
Hey, make sure y'all check out the links in the description box.
Down below.
You already know where to go if you want to first support. You got to do it. Check out down below. Also, if you enjoyed today's video,
like it with a thumbs up.
Let's get it, baby. Let's check it out. Let's see what this is about. You ready?
Alright.
Let's go.
Jun Lin was a 33-year-old international undergraduate student from Wuhan, China. He moved to Montreal, Canada in 2010 to study engineering and computer science. And according to his best friend, Benjamin Zhu, Lin had also moved to Canada because Lin was actually gay, just not openly. And back home in China, he had hid that from his family and from society because he felt pressure to, conform. And he had even married a woman to keep up appearances. But that relationship ended in divorce, and he ultimately decided, I need to be myself. I need to go someplace that can allow me to do that. And he saw Canada as that place. So Lin gets to Montreal, and by all accounts, he's really pleased with the accepting and liberal culture there. It was everything he hoped it would be. But Lin was notoriously shy and reserved, and after living in Canada for about a year or so, he hadn't really built a very big network at all. He only had a handful of very close friends. Lin did go out and get a cat that he absolutely adored and treated like a baby, and it seems like the cat might have been his closest companion in that first year and a half. But in early 2012, Lin finally reached a point where he was like, you know what? I need to put myself out there and make some new friends. I need to get uncomfortable to expand my network a little bit. And so he went on Craigslist in hopes that he would find someone basically asking for a friend. He would find an ad from a guy named Luka Magnotta, who was roughly his age, who was asking for guys that wanted to be in a homemade movie with him. But he explicitly said in the post that it was nothing inappropriate. It was just a fun homemade movie. And apparently Lin thought, this is exactly what I'm looking for. This is an easy way to make a friend. And he reached out to Luka, and the two set a date to meet up. Unfortunately for Lin, this Craigslist ad was bait. 1 year before Luka posted that Craigslist ad asking for someone to be in his movie with him, he had made another kind of movie. It was called One Boy, Two Kittens. And it was Luka filming himself suffocating two cats to death. Luka posted this video anonymously and took great measures.
They always say that's how it starts, though. Cruelty on animals, and once they do, I guess once they can commit it to animals, it's like, all right, if I can do it to
Okay.
How does doing it to an animal makes you like, okay, I'm comfortable enough to do it to a human?
But
When
sick, bro.
Suffocating two cats to
Evil.
death. Luka posted this video anonymously and took great measures to ensure on camera he didn't give anything away about himself. He wanted to shock the world with this video, but he didn't want to get caught. Now, once this video started getting spread around the internet and people saw that this wasn't a hoax, it was a real horrible video, a large Facebook group was started with the sole purpose being, let's figure out who did this. Let's figure out who made this video. And they painstakingly went through every single scene in this horrible video, and they were able to pull quite a bit of information about who the person was that created this video, but they didn't have enough information to identify who it really was. But when Luka uploaded a second and then third video of him again harming more cats, This Facebook group started to recognize a pattern. Luka was incorporating very specific music into the background of these videos, as well as a couple of posters that were intentionally placed in the shot of these videos. And it became clear that Luka was trying to recreate certain scenes from certain movies. And it was through these movie references that they determined Luka was in Canada, and then using one of the still shots from a picture he had posted, they figured out exactly in Canada where he was. And so they felt like they had finally nailed this guy, and they reach out to Canadian authorities and they say, hey, we have this guy, you know, he's harming animals and he's showing all the signs that he's going to do this to a human at some point. We know exactly where he lives, we know his name, we know everything about him. Here you go arrest this guy. But the Canadian authorities basically said, it's just cats. We really can't do much about this. And they sat on it. They didn't do anything. Fast forward to May 24th, 2012, and it's the day that Lynn and Luka Magnotta are supposed to meet up to make this fun movie. There is security footage of Lynn meeting up with Luka right outside of Luka's apartment in Montreal, Canada. They walk up to the front door. Lynn has a yellow shirt on. Luka has a white shirt on. Luka opens the door, Lynn follows after him, and the two walk down the hall and up the stairs and out of view. They make their way up to room 208, that was Luka's apartment. They go inside and Luka offers Lynn some wine that he had put some very heavy sedative into, and Lynn didn't know this. Lynn drinks the wine and he becomes lethargic and tired, but he's not totally unconscious. Luka brings Lynn over to the bed and he has him lay down, and then he ties his arms and his legs to the bed as he's laying on his back. And then Luka turns on some music and he gets a camera on a tripod and he sets it up at the base of the bed looking at Lynn. Luka hits record and you can see that Lynn is still conscious and moving around, but he's not fighting back in any way. Luka walks up to the side of the bed and he kind of pats Lynn on the head before getting on top of him, pulling out an ice pick and brutally killing Lynn on camera.
Boy, you know, think about our ice pick. That's brutal, bro. An ice pick? It's a horrible way. What the fuck? And the fact the Canadian government was like,
okay, no, just cats.
It's just cats. Who cares?
Like what?
This ice pick. Afterwards, Luka gets off the bed. He puts on Lynn's yellow t-shirt that he had been wearing, and Luka just casually leaves his apartment and comes back with a bag filled with cleaning materials and gloves. But before he goes in to the apartment, the security camera picks him up, stopping and looking at his own reflection and checking to make sure his hair was perfectly placed behind his ears, as if there's nothing more important right now than his appearance, even though literally minutes earlier, you just savagely killed someone on camera. After ensuring his hair was in just the right position, he casually walks back into the apartment building, up to his room, into the room where Lynn is. He brings him into the bathroom and chops him into pieces. He kept a few smaller pieces for himself that he eventually ate. He wrapped up the hands and feet, which he ultimately mailed to the Canadian government. And then the rest of Lynn was cut into fairly small pieces and put into trash bags. And then over the next several hours, Luka would make dozens of trips from his room down to the basement of the apartment building where he would dispose of these bags in the dumpster. The next day, on May 25th, 2012, Luka anonymously uploaded an 11-minute video called One Lunatic, One Ice Pick to the shock website Best Gore. The video was of Luka killing John Lynn. When the Facebook group that had been tracking Luka for his animal cruelty saw this video, this One Lunatic, One Ice Pick video, they instantly knew this is Luka, and they told the police and they showed them all the evidence from previous videos and why this is definitely Luka. And the police listened, and they were able to find Luka sitting in an internet cafe in Berlin, Germany, Googling himself. Luka would try to use insanity as his defense, but the Facebook group had shared with the police, and then the police shared with the prosecutors, that Luka was actually just reenacting scenes from some of his favorite movies. It was this bizarre fantasy he had, and what he did to John Lynn is eerily similar to the opening scene of Luka's favorite movie of all time, Basic Instinct. In the movie, a woman is sitting on a man who's tied up on a bed, and she reaches under the sheets and she pulls out an ice pick and proceeds to kill the man with it. Luka was quickly found guilty and sentenced to life in prison. I decided to leave out any of the footage from One Lunatic, One Ice Pick. It's truly one of the most distressing things I've ever seen. So If you want to see that, that's up to you. Instead, I included the footage of Luka and Lynn going into the apartment building together, and then Luka coming down sometime later after having killed Lynn, now wearing Lynn's shirt, and then makes all those trips to the dumpster as he's disposing of Lynn's body.
Oh, we seen this before.
This is...
Yeah, we seen this clip before. Like a while ago.
I'm so sad. Just looking for a friend. Wow. Look at him.
Yeah, that man sick, bro.
So that's going to do it, guys. Let me know what you thought of these 3 stories in the comment section, and I will...
Yo,
Oh,
that's
devastating.
sick. But I do remember this story, though. We have heard about this story before. I don't know if it's a Nick Crowley or back in the day when we used to do top 10s. It was a video like years ago we seen. Like,
I don't know.
we've been doing YouTube, 4 or 5 years now, so it's probably been about...
We've been doing YouTube longer than 4 or 5 years. Got about 5 years. 4 or 5 years.
It's about 5.
Yeah, but I think I have. I just didn't know if it was the same story because I don't remember all the details.
Reason why I'm saying that, I remember the clip of them going in together.
You?
Yeah, and a compilation we did a while ago.
Just to think that you just met a new friend and y'all just about to hang out and there's just going to be that. Just for this to be your last moments. Oh, that's devastating.
You walk into your quote unquote not like final resting, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Without you knowing it. That's the most tragic ass story, bro. And the fact that it could have been prevented.
Like it could have. It could have.
But they decided not to listen.
Yep.
In February of 2019, a young man named Austin and his family moved to Houston, Texas. As soon as they arrived and they had their stuff pulled off the vehicles, Austin went out looking for a job. Because he was brand new to the area and his family was really tight on cash, he started looking for jobs that people didn't necessarily want, the types of jobs that would hire him really quickly. And luckily, 5 minutes down the road from his house was a gas station that was looking for someone to take the dreaded 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. shift.
Oh.
I applied for that before.
Yeah.
Like, I know how that feels. I was like fresh out of high school, and I was working at the restaurants, and I was like, bro, I prefer something like more of a solid check than like working at the restaurants and getting tips and stuff. So I was like, man, fuck. That was like gas station hire. I'm like, man, F it. Then now when I think about it on the hindsight, I'm like,
oh, a gas station working that shift.
Gas station, bro.
I mean, working any shift is like, because
around here we have seen people get killed at the gas station. Yeah. That's
like my only thing. People trying to come in, trying to rob. Yeah.
But that's typically be
especially you like working by yourself or something.
Yeah.
Austin went over there, he applied, and was quickly given the job, and quickly realized how miserable it is to sleep all day and work all night. 3 months later, in May, Austin woke up one evening to get ready for work, and he realized the power was out. So he left his bedroom and headed downstairs where his father was, and he asked him, how long has the power been out? And his dad told him that basically as soon as Austin had come home from his last shift, it had gone out, and the power company says it's going to be a while before it comes back on again. Austin stepped outside onto his front porch underneath the overhang, and it was pouring rain. And in fact, it had been raining when he had come back from his last shift, and looking out at his front yard and the streets, which were all flooded, it was clear it had just not stopped raining. And he's looking around and all the houses are completely dark, the streetlights are even dark. So this power outage is pretty massive. Austin wasn't sure if he was going to need to go into work that day because of the flooding and the power outage. So he called his manager and he asked her, and she would say that, yes, we do need you to come in, but not for your normal job because the store is without power like everyone else. What we want you to do is just sit inside the store with the doors locked to prevent looting. Feeling a little let down that he still had to work, Austin grabbed a cup of coffee, put on his rain boots and his rain jacket, and ran out to his car. The drive to work was surreal. Not only was it totally dark because there was basically no streetlights on and all the houses are dark, but as Austin was driving, the roads were flooded. But because there was no light, it was very difficult to gauge how deep these puddles were. And on the road, periodically, he would see cars that had miscalculated the depths of these puddles and clearly had gotten stuck, and the driver had just abandoned their vehicle. He described the scene as feeling like something out of a zombie apocalypse movie. Austin finally got to the gas station parking lot, which was slightly elevated, so there was a whole bunch of cars that had been left in the lot, presumably to avoid being flooded. And so he pulls into a spot and he sees his manager is in the store. She sees him. He hops out of the car. He runs up to the door. She unlocks it. She lets him in. She shuts it and locks it behind him. Austin had never been inside the store without power on. And he said what struck him as soon as he walked in was not just that it was totally dark, but it was totally quiet. All the drink machines and the cooler and all the kind of ambient sounds were all gone, and it was just totally quiet. He turned to his manager, who was using her phone as a flashlight, and she said to him, "Look, there's not much for you to do here, so keep the doors shut. Let me know if you need anything, and if the power comes back on again, open the store as usual." She handed him the keys and left out the front door. He locked the door behind her and then walked over to one of the tables inside, up against the side of the store. When he sat down, he got out his phone to start watching some YouTube videos to kill the time, but he quickly saw that there was no internet service. And he figured, well, I guess the power outage must have affected internet providers. And so now, totally bored without the internet, he got up and got a couple energy drinks, and he sat down at this table and just smashed energy drinks and watched the rain. And after about an hour of doing that, he was still really bored, and he thought, you know, I've always wanted to do vlogging, and so why not start vlogging right now? So he gets his phone out and he props it up on the table and he starts recording himself. And so for the next couple of hours, Austin talked into his camera about the storm, about the power outage, about sports, about movies, about all sorts of things. His intent was not really to create a concise vlog so much as to just stay awake doing something. And it was working. He enjoyed doing it. And then around 3 a.m., as he's sitting there talking to his camera, you hear the unmistakable sound of someone banging really hard on the inside of the coolers on the other side of the store. And Austin immediately stops talking and turns his head and looks. And he hears it again. Very distinct pounding coming from the other side of the building. At this point, Austin is still looking. He's not even flinching. He's just staring in the direction of the sound. And then he turns back to the camera when he hears a third sound that doesn't sound like pounding, but it sounds like something else coming from that side of the room. And after that third sound, he's had enough. He gets up, he walks out of the store, locks it behind him, and gets in his car. He doesn't go back inside the store for the rest of his shift. And when his manager shows up, he honks the horn to get her to come over. And she's like, "What are you doing out here? Why aren't you in the store like you're supposed to be?" And he just shows her the video. As she's watching the video, she's clearly startled by the footage. And at the end of it, she confesses to Austin that lately employees have been telling her they're hearing weird banging sounds coming from the cooler. And that she had gone in there to check if maybe there was an animal or just something that was causing the sound. And she said she couldn't find it. After this, Austin's manager went inside the store and looked around, and there was no one inside, there was no one in the cooler, and she reviewed the footage of inside and outside the store over the past 12 to 24 hours, and the only people that had come near the store were her and Austin. Austin quit his job there 2 weeks later. Here is some of the footage of Austin inside the gas station.
It is pouring. All day it's been pouring. So I went outside to go check, and our street was flooded. And in front of his street. You hear that? Something is moving around in the cooler.
The first sound I heard that.
Screw all that noise.
What you said?
So that's going to do it, guys. If you found the
I know
secret
that's
in today's
right.
Hey, I'm with Austin, bro.
Child.
Bump all that, bro.
I don't get paid enough for all this.
Not at no
You
gas
can deal with
station.
it. Because the fact that you didn't even tell me, you got me here by myself at that, I'm good.
Bump all
Thank
that.
you. Thank you. Thank you for the
Call me
opportunity.
whatever you want to call me, but you can't call me.
Yeah. No. Mm-mm.
In 2009, a man named Joe Cummings was living in a New York City apartment when he started to notice food in his refrigerator was going missing. Joe led a very hectic lifestyle and did not spend that much time in his apartment. So he thought perhaps, I've been in a rush lately and I've been eating more food than I realized. He started paying more attention to how much he was eating, and whenever he put food back in the fridge, he was really aware of just how much was left when he put it back in. But over and over again, he'd take the food back out again, and it was like someone had eaten another 25% of what he had left. It quickly got to a point where he could not rationalize why the food was missing. He knew it wasn't him, so the only other person it could be would be his girlfriend, who did live with him, but she never touched his food. But since there was no one else to ask, he went up to his girlfriend and said, "Are you eating my food?" And she at first was just really confused because she hadn't heard about this, and then was like, "No, I'm not touching your food. I have my own food. I don't eat your food." As convincing as she might have been, Joe was kind of backed into a corner. There was no other reasonable explanation for why the food was missing. So he decided he would set up a hidden camera in his kitchen to catch his girlfriend eating his food. So that day he went out and got a camera, came back, set it up, made sure it worked, and then he hit record and went to bed. The next day, when he reviewed the footage, he knew immediately that it was not his girlfriend.
Right.
Joe would post his hidden camera footage to YouTube in a video he called "Creeper in My Apartment." The video starts with Joe adjusting the camera so it's lined up the way he wants it. Then it fast forwards a couple of hours and you hear a sound coming from somewhere in the kitchen. And then this woman emerges out of the cupboard and very carefully extends her foot down to a table and gets down onto the kitchen floor and makes sure Joe has not hurt her. Afterwards, she goes into his fridge and she's drinking milk right out of the carton.
Shut up.
And then at some point, Joe actually comes into the kitchen and she has to dive out of the way and hides from him. When he leaves, she gets up, she takes some food, and she goes right back up into the cupboard. The video ends with Joe walking into the kitchen the next morning, totally oblivious to what happened the night before, and going in his fridge and drinking from the same carton that she had drank from. When Joe reviewed the footage, he immediately called the police, who came over and they pulled her out of the cupboard and they arrested her. Joe believes she must have snuck in from the fire escape because it leads up to a window that he couldn't lock in the back of his apartment. And the police said that based on what they found in the...
Because he did say he's in New York, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I swear I thought he said
Yeah,
New
sure.
York.
I didn't write. I just
2009.
wrote 2009 Joe.
Oh, you won't be writing location, do you?
I do, but not on the short ones. I normally don't even write anything. I just jotted it down real quick.
But I normally, if I write, I normally write the location because a lot of times they...
Yeah, I always write the location if it's like long. Yeah.
a window that he couldn't lock in the back of his apartment. And the police said that based on what they found in the space she was living in up in the cupboard, that she probably was there for at least 2 weeks. Here are some highlights from Joe's Creeper in My Apartment video.
You know it's Joe. Oh, shit. I ain't gonna hold you, bro. The way she came down, though, I was finna say, what the fuck is that? Did you?
That's scary, bro.
It's the way she was about to come down. It was fucking creepy,
She's like,
bro.
it's time to go eat.
I wonder. So she has to say somewhere else.
Or she's just up there all day.
But that's the only other information I need is where does she actually be staying?
Or maybe she leaves. Like maybe when he go to work, she probably know his schedule.
But his girlfriend lives there too.
Maybe she works too.
But no,
I don't know. I know what you're saying, but I don't know. This is freaky. I don't know.
But it's the way she came down. I was like, oh, bro. Look at it. But it's fast forward. Oh, shit. She got a whole routine. She know where the stools are. She leaves
pulled
over
the
for
shirt. She was like, she want to make his less noise as
Oh
possible.
Lord, cause why not just go ahead and just jump down? I guess cause you do and it do.
Yeah.
So bro, this is.
And then she got a little is that
a little jug.
so she can fill it up so she can. She probably up there.
Lightly run a faucet.
She probably up there all day.
Lightly run a. That's what I'm saying.
That's what I was saying.
She in your fridge. She's straight drinking.
Oh my God, she's
and she
so tiny.
And she turning that bit up.
Baby, look at her.
Oh hell no.
So did she leave that open over there when she came? Wow. Or maybe, when you sleep, you're not really noticing things, especially if you don't turn on the light.
Or is it an opening? Because I don't see any
could
doors.
Be. Yeah. That's so scary, bro. Look at her.
Somebody coming out the back. Oh no, he came right across.
I came and got him a little.
And went right back, and she came right back. Hell no.
Look at her.
In the pantry. She bold, bitch, be bold.
Look at her. Now she gone back.
Hold on, because it's like jump cut fast forward. She really climbed up on that bed, pulled it out, climbed up a bit, and then
scooted back in so she can go back.
This is her routine.
This is her routine. I used to climb on the cabinets like that to get the cookies out the. Oh, baby, she is.
Man, you ain't paid attention to shit. And it's gone.
So that's going to do it, guys.
God.
Let me know what you thought of these 3 stories in the comments section, and I will pin the best comment.
What I do wonder, like say for instance, it took him like a month to set up the camera.
Okay.
She would have been there the entire. She would have just been there as long as
saying
possible.
like how long has she been hiding out up there?
They said at least 2 weeks, right? He said at least 2 weeks, but I'm saying if he'd never put the camera up there to catch her, to see that it was someone else, there's no telling how long she would have been
how
up
long
there.
he would have been able to get away with it. I mean, she would have
been able to get away with it. Yeah.
And that's scary though, because she could have came in and did anything to you.
Right?
It doesn't
she could have took y'all out and just took over the house.
True. It doesn't necessarily mean she just would have ate y'all food. She probably would have been like, okay, you know.
I'm tired of doing this.
Or if y'all had caught her, what would have happened?
Well, man, that's so scary.
Yeah, that's a scary situation right there. Y'all.
It was the day after Christmas in 2010, and Catherine Kleiss was really excited about the upcoming week. She and her husband, Jack Wheeler, had started this tradition where the week between Christmas and New Year's, they would turn off their cell phones, close their laptops, they wouldn't work, and they would just sit around watching movies together the whole week. But that day, Jack would tell Catherine, much to her dismay, that he wasn't going to be around for that week because he had business in Washington, D.C., and it was really important and he couldn't miss it. Catherine was really upset and disappointed and initially kind of lashed out at Jack, but Catherine would say that she wasn't exactly surprised. Jack was a prominent consultant and a former Pentagon official. He traveled a ton for work. So Jack leaves for this trip, and Catherine kind of anticipates that they're not going to speak while he's gone. They didn't really end on good terms, and typically when they fought, they would go long periods of time without talking to each other. But as much as Catherine wanted to be stubborn and not talk to him, they had a wedding they were supposed to go to together at the end of the week, and Catherine needed to coordinate travel with Jack. And so after a couple of days that he's been in DC and she hasn't heard from him, she puts her ego aside and she calls him. Her call went straight to voicemail. And then she called a couple more times, and again, all of them went straight to voicemail. She texted him, no response. She emailed him, no response. Catherine interprets this as Jack trying to ignore her, and she's furious. And she ends up going to the wedding by herself. After the wedding was over, she gets back to her house, and she still hasn't heard from Jack, but she's so mad and so stubborn that he was doing this on purpose, she still didn't think anything was wrong. She really believed that he was stonewalling her. But on January 2nd, 2011, Catherine would get a phone call that would show her that Jack was never stonewalling her. He was never ignoring her. He was dead. Back on the day after Christmas, right after Jack has told Catherine that, sorry, I'm not going to be around this week, he gathers up his things and he heads to the Amtrak train station and boards a train to Washington, D.C. Jack arrives in Washington, D.C., and for the next couple of days, he has a very ordinary business trip. On December 28th, the day he's supposed to come home, things get a little bit weird. Instead of going back to New York, where he lived with Catherine, he bought a train ticket to go to Wilmington, Delaware. Now, he owned a house about 20 minutes away from Wilmington, but he had never indicated to Catherine or to anyone in his family that he'd be spending any time at this residence following this trip. No one knows what Jack did that night in Delaware or where he stayed. All we know is on the following day, on December 29th, he got in a cab and asked to go to a particular hotel in Wilmington. The police would get in touch with this cab driver who would say he was completely normal. He just looked like a business guy that wanted to go to this hotel. We had small talk in the cab and I dropped him off and that was it. Around 9:30 in the morning that day, Jack sends an email to his company that says his home has been broken into and his cell phone along with his badge, his work badge, and a key fob and his briefcase have all been stolen. After that email, we don't know what Jack did over the course of that day because he was not spotted again until 6 p.m. that night when he walked into a pharmacy and walked up to a random pharmacist and said, "Hey, can you give me a ride somewhere?" The pharmacist would tell police that when Jack came in there and asked him for a ride, he looked really upset, but overall, more or less put together. He had a suit on, he looked like he genuinely just needed some help, but the pharmacist just had a weird feeling about it and said, "Look, I can't give you a ride, but I'd be happy to call you a cab." Jack would decline the offer for a cab and would leave the pharmacy. 40 minutes later, a surveillance camera in a parking garage would capture Jack acting totally bizarre. He walks into frame and immediately it's like something's off about him. His suit looks kind of wrinkled and rumpled and he's walking with a limp and he's only got one shoe on because the other shoe is being held in his other hand for some reason. He goes up to the attendant and he points his finger at them like he's upset about something. And apparently what he was saying to them is, "Someone stole my briefcase," but there's no audio on the footage. And then he turns and walks down the hall and he opens up a door into the garage, pokes his head around like he's looking for something, shuts the door and comes back. And apparently he was saying to the attendant, "I'm looking for my car, can you help me find it?" And no one really knew what to do with the guy. And just as quickly as he had arrived and made this kind of weird scene, he abruptly left and didn't tell anyone where he was going. Nobody knows where he went after the parking garage or where he stayed that night, but the next day on December 30th, Jack walked into this high-rise office building. He goes right up to the front desk attendant in the lobby, and he asked to speak with a managing partner at one of the law firms that was inside of this office building. The attendant calls up to the law firm, and the lawyer is notified, who says he'll be down in a minute, but by the time he got down to the lobby to meet with Jack, Jack was gone. We don't know what Jack did after he left the office building, but several hours later that night, Jack is picked up to the north of this building in an area called Rodney Square, and he's making his way over to the relatively dangerous part of the city known as the East Side. Jack had also changed his outfit at this point. He was now wearing a sweatshirt with the hood up. The next time anybody saw Jack, he was being poured out of a dump truck into a landfill, and he was dead. The worker who spotted Jack's body being poured into the landfill called the police. The police show up and they were able to determine, based on the truck that Jack had been in, that he was picked up from a dumpster that was in Newark, Delaware, not Wilmington, Delaware, which means Jack's body was somehow in a dumpster 13 miles away from where he was last seen on camera in Rodney Square. Police quickly ruled this a homicide, and it was determined that his cause of death was blunt force trauma. He had been beaten to death. But to this day, no one has any idea who did it or why Jack was acting as strangely as he was in those final few days in Delaware.
That's
now, his
strange.
wife and his family have watched the videos of him on surveillance acting very strangely, and they say he's not acting crazy. He's acting scared. Here is the surveillance footage of Jack when he was at the parking garage walking around with one shoe on.
Was somebody after him, possibly?
Possibly.
That's the reason why they even stole, like, his briefcase. What was he involved in?
Hey, look at...
Yeah. Or could somebody have spiked something? You never know.
You really don't, bro.
And he shut the door. He shut the door, right?
Mm-hmm.
He went and shut the door. You don't. Come on, bro.
So that's going to do it, guys. Let me know what you thought of these 3 stories in the comments.
That's sad. And to have no answers.
It's homicide 100%. But it's like, why? And it's the biggest factor. And who? Why and who is the 2 biggest factors?
And where he get the other clothes from? Like the changing, I don't know.
That too. Like, my thing is, either somebody gave him something and he kind of went through like a psychotic break, or somebody's after him.
Yeah.
Those are the only 2 things I can see. Mm-hmm. Anything else, I'm like, the family even said that's not his norm.
Yeah.
And they like, he looks like he's afraid.
Yeah, he's scared of something. Someone.
Yeah, that's a confusing one, bro.
Facts.
Oh, no.
That's where you don't really have much else to go off.
He ain't communicate with nobody for real.
He couldn't, really. Didn't have a phone. Yeah. And then, like, with that behavior, even trying to, like, ask someone for help, which he did try, people, like, no.
And then it sucks as well when it comes down to the fact that, like, him and his wife was on bad terms.
Yeah.
And that's not a good thing, you know what I'm saying? Because you have all this regret.
And you hold all of that.
Yeah.
But it's not your fault. But yeah.
Hey, man, y'all spam us up in the comments.
And rest in peace.
Oh, yeah.
To him.
For sure.
Rest in peace to Jack.
For sure. And there's no, but that happened back in 2011. If technology 10 years later was way better.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
From the time Garnett Spears was born on December 3rd, 2008, he was a sick child. At just 2 months old, he stopped being able to keep food down and he began losing weight. His mother, Lacey, switched him from breast milk to formula, thinking that might help, but it didn't. So she switched to a combination between breast milk and formula. That didn't work, so she brought him to the doctor. After running a blood test, it was determined Garnett's sodium levels were too high, which was most likely the cause for his upset stomach. And so the doctor gave Garnett an IV, which flushed the sodium out of his system, and immediately Garnett seemed better off. And then afterwards, when Lacey asked the doctor why could this be happening, he said he didn't know, that perhaps it was something in his formula, or maybe even something in her breast milk. He gave her some advice on what she should be eating, and then gave her the obligatory reminder to, don't give him anything besides breast milk or formula. He gave her special formula to use, and then he sent her on her way. Despite following doctor's orders, over the next several months, Garnett continued to get sick, be brought into the doctor's office, only to discover his sodium levels were elevated again. Finally, after 9 months of this still going on and Lacey not getting any answers about what was going on with her son, she brought him to a specialist who suggested, as a short-term solution, why don't we just put a feeding tube directly into Garnett's abdomen? That way we can guarantee he's getting the exact right mix of nutrients. And if he's still having elevated sodium levels after that, then we'll look at other reasons this could be happening. After it was inserted, Garnett's condition seemed to dramatically improve, leading doctors to believe it had to have been some strange ingredient inside the formula or something inside of Lacey's breast milk. But despite his improved condition, Garnett was not 100% healthy. Over the next few years, periodically, his sodium levels would spike, which no doctor could explain, and it would cause stomach pains and headaches, and in some instances, it would cause seizures. And Lacey, who diligently documented every single food, fluid, anything that went inside of her son, at the first sign of trouble, she would rush him to the hospital. But all doctors could ever do was administer an IV to flush the sodium out, and then give her the obligatory reminder to only feed him certain foods that were low in sodium. And so for the next few years, life went on like that. In 2012, when Garnett was 4, they moved out of Lacey's hometown in Alabama to New York. They moved into a retirement community called the Fellowship, which is a place where younger people can go and live for free in exchange for caring for the elderly. And Garnett loved it there. He would run around the halls and poke his head in the older folks' room, and they all loved Garnett. It was really just a happy place for both Lacey and for Garnett. During that time, Lacey started a blog called Garnett the Great, which documented Garnett's life and their kind of collective struggles to figure out what was going on with Garnett with these weird sodium level spikes. The blog gained a lot of support, not only because of Garnett's condition, but because this was not the first hardship the mother and son had had to face. When Lacey was pregnant with Garnett, Garnett's father, who was a police officer, was killed in a car accident. And so the supporters of this blog were really eager to find ways to give back and support this mother and son. But no amount of love and support could have prevented what happened in January of 2014. On the 17th of that month, Garnett woke up with a high fever and stomach pains, and on the drive into the hospital, he had a seizure. When they arrived, doctors tested Garnett's blood, and like usual, his sodium levels were through the roof. And so they administered an IV, which reduced his symptoms. And after he was back to normal, they said they wanted to keep him at the hospital for a couple of days to observe him because of that seizure he had. They wanted to make sure that, one, it didn't happen again, and two, there wasn't something else going on. For the first 2 days of Garnett's observation at the hospital, he was asymptomatic. They tested his blood, his sodium levels were normal, and everything seemed to be going fine. And in fact, they were getting ready to discharge him when all of a sudden on January 19th, so 2 days after arriving, he suddenly seemed to be in much worse shape. When they tested his blood, sure enough, his sodium levels were at an all-time high. And so after giving him an IV and attempting to lower his sodium levels, it just wasn't happening quickly enough. And so they transferred him to a specialized children's hospital that could handle this situation better, and they were able to bring his levels back down to normal. However, the damage had been done. This final enormous sodium spike had led to massive brain swelling that ultimately killed him a couple of days later. After his death, doctors were baffled at how his sodium could have spiked on January 19th because they were closely monitoring what was going into his body. And sodium does not just suddenly appear in your body. It needs to be inserted into your body. And so they reviewed all of his medical files, and that included looking at the footage of the camera that had been set up at the foot of the bed facing Garnett to monitor him for seizures. And on that camera, they saw his own mother, Lacey, take him out of bed on the 19th, carrying a white cup and an attachment to Garnett's feeder tube. She takes Garnett out of bed. She walks him into the bathroom. A couple minutes later, she brings him back, puts him back in bed. And seconds later, he's violently ill. They come in, they test his blood, and what do you know? The sodium is at that critical high point that ultimately killed him. Doctors were obviously very suspicious of Lacey and what she was doing with her son in the bathroom, and so they showed it to police. Police launch an investigation. They go to Lacey's house, and as soon as they walk inside, there is table salt all over the house. There's salt on every table, and inside of the boy's room was an IV stand with this brackish looking liquid inside of an IV bag that they tested, and it was salt water that contained the equivalent of 70 salt packets. Lacey had been intentionally poisoning her son with too much salt since he was born because she liked the attention she received. Lacey had a history of lying to get attention. She used to lie as a kid and even as an adult about different illnesses that she said she had, and she also lied about Garnett's father. He was not a police officer. He had not been killed in an accident. He was just a former friend that she refused to let see Garnett. During Garnett's final hospital stay, after doctors informed Lacey that her son's brain had swollen so much it was unlikely he would survive, all caused by Lacey, she posted this picture to Facebook. Shortly after, Garnett slipped into a coma and never regained consciousness. He was 6 years old. Lacey was sentenced to 20 years to life in prison. So that's going to do it, guys. If you found the secret in today's episode, let us know in the comments what it is and where you found it. So give us the timestamp. And if you're the first to do that, we'll pin you at the top of the comments.
Rest in peace to Garnett. That is sad.
I already knew she was doing it. As soon as he said sodium levels high.
When he said with the, well, I don't want to say this part because people may take it the wrong way, but just with everything she was doing and then having the blog and stuff and then wanting all this, I was like she like seeming just from the title, she does it for attention. It's this attention thing, but that's horrible, bro.
That happens a lot, though, bro.
That's
some gotta
horrible.
give, though.
Yeah.
Like stuff. Because honestly, she probably even had the kid too. Get attention. Because, you know, people show pregnant people a lot of attention. Hey, and she like, oh, I love that. Bro, she a sick ass motherfucker,
That's it.
bro. And then only
And
to
20
get 20
years, that's it?
20 to life.
20
to life.
Oh.
So she can still spend her
I thought
whole
you
life.
said 20.
But she gets, after 20 years, she gets an opportunity at parole.
Parole, yeah.
Which is so fucked up, bro. Because I don't think she ever deserves to ever see freedom ever again. The son never had a chance to live.
Suffered from a baby.
You had an opportunity to live, and you threw it away. So 100% you don't deserve to have your freedom.
No.
You threw
You
it away.
put him through so much.
Facts. Y'all.
Between 1890 and 1963, 695 people were executed in the state of New York. 614 of those executions were carried out via electric chair in one of the most infamous maximum security prisons in the world called Sing Sing. Sing Sing has long held an almost mythological place in American culture. Many books have been written about the prison and many movies have been set there. Among the notorious people who were put to death there was the serial killer David Berkowitz, better known as the Son of Sam, who killed 6 people and injured another 10. The boss of the infamous Brooklyn gang called Murder Inc., which was responsible for over 20 murders, and the so-called Lonely Hearts Killers, which was Martha Beck and Raymond Fernandez, who during the 1940s and 50s used newspaper ads to lure up to 20 lonely women to their death. But today's story...
Why you here looking at me like that? When I said,
I just looked at you. I was like, oh, you know about this?
no, Murder Inc.
Yeah, I thought about that too, but then you seemed like you was a little bit more like...
No, I was just thinking about.
I was like, is that where they get...
That's what I'm saying.
I was like, is that where they
why
got the name? I'm gonna do some research.
That's what I said. That's what I said in my head. That's why I said, And you looking at me like.
I'm like, what you know that I don't know? Because I'm surprised.
But a lot of people do be getting their names from
stuff
stuff that has happened in the past, and you won't be knowing like even like the rapper Rick Ross. You get your name from Rick Ross, or Supreme. You get that's an actual dude, Supreme. So you know.
Newspaper ads to lure up to 20 lonely women to their death. But today's story is not about a famous condemned inmate, it's about a famous picture of one. In the late 1800s, Arthur Mayhew killed a shopkeeper during a botched robbery. His accomplice turned him in order to receive a lesser sentence for himself. Convicted and condemned, Mayhew found himself awaiting execution for a year inside of the Sing Sing death house. During that time, 3 people were executed. Given the layout of the Sing Sing death house, Mayhew would not have seen these 3 executions, but he would have heard them. Radiating out from the death chamber were 6 cells known as the dance hall. This is where the next 6 people scheduled to die waited their turn. These cells were only...
That's punishment, bro.
So you got the actual chamber, and then you got the...
You hear them. You can hear them, and these are the people that's next.
People that's waiting.
And they and I ain't no telling how long they got to wait, months. But they, while I'm sitting here waiting, y'all go get the next ones, and we hear them. So I'm hearing my torture that's coming.
Yeah,
that's sad, bro.
I'm reading,
and I get people like, yeah, it's sad, but at the end of the day, I understand that. But damn.
Also, this is where the person that's being, will be, and then these are the people that's watching,
But
and then these are the people waiting.
Yeah.
This is where the next 6 people scheduled to die waited their turn.
Wow.
These cells were only separated from the death chamber by a thin wall and a small door, neither of which were soundproof. During executions, white sheets were draped over the 5 cells in the dance hall that still contained occupants. From behind these sheets, prisoners could hear the guards come down the hall, open up the door of that 6th cell of the person who's going to be executed. They could hear them being removed from their cell, walk down the hall. They'd hear the death chamber door open and then shut. They would hear the prisoner's last words, if they had any, and then they would hear the clunk of the switch being thrown and then the hum of electricity as it surged. Many times, the executions did not go smoothly, causing the condemned to yell out in agony and pain as the switch is flipped over and over and over again. And as a final torture, the prisoners in the dance hall would hear the sound of the autopsy being performed. New York state law mandated an autopsy be completed immediately after execution. There were rumors floating around the prison that the electric chair didn't always kill the prisoner, that in fact they were just stunned by the time they got to the autopsy table. One doctor's autopsy report in 1951 said he believed the reason autopsies were done right after the execution was not to determine cause of death. It was to ensure they were dead. Because of their proximity to this macabre process, prisoners in the dance hall oftentimes lost their mind waiting to be executed. On March 12, 1897, Arthur Mayhew's wait was up. He woke up at 7:30 that morning after 5 hours of undisturbed sleep. He was going to be second to die that day. When the guard showed up to bring him breakfast, Mayhew apparently looked nervous, and he asked the guard, "What's the weather like outside?" And the guard told him it was raining, to which Mayhew said, "Man, that's too bad." Initially, Mayhew refused food, but then later called the guard back over and asked if he could have eggs and coffee. After breakfast, Mayhew's wife and brother showed up, and they visited with him until shortly before 10:30, when unexpectedly, the guy who was supposed to be executed ahead of Mayhew was informed his sentence had been commuted. And so in full view of Mayhew, this guy is crying tears of joy. He's going to live, and he gets transferred back to general population. And so because that guy's execution was no longer happening, they decided to bump Mayhew's execution up to right then and there. And so they went to his cell, they opened the door, and they told Mayhew's wife and brother it was time for them to leave. As they were walking out, Mayhew was pleading with them to believe him that he was innocent, but neither of them believed him. They knew he was guilty. The guards shut Mayhew's cell and told him he had 45 minutes left. And so while Mayhew kneeled inside of his cell praying loudly, the executioner right across the hall prepped the electric chair. At 11:10 a.m., Mayhew watched the guards as they pinned white sheets in front of the other 5 cells. And then at 11:15, they came to his door, they opened it up, and they said, "It's time." They walked Mayhew over to the death chamber door, they opened it up, and as soon as Mayhew saw the electric chair for the first time, he panicked and he tried to run away, but there was 5 men that grabbed him and pulled him into the death chamber, and as he's screaming for mercy, they dragged him over to the chair, forced him down, and began putting on his restraints. Initially, when Arthur sat down, he was viciously fighting and trying to get the men off of him, but as they were nearing the end of getting all of his restraints on, he suddenly just went limp, and he had this look of complete resignation on his face. He knew it was over. In the barely 60-second long window of time when the final restraint was placed at 11:16 and when he was pronounced dead at 11:17, a photographer walked out in front of Arthur Mayhew and took this picture. Mayhew's final words were, "Jesus, have mercy on," and his words were cut off by the death-dealing electrical current. So that's going to do it, guys. If you found the secret in today's episode, let us know in the comments what it is and where you found it. So give us the timestamp.
Because he said he went to jail because botched robbery, right? Mm-hmm. And the dude who
had basically
that he was
told on him to get a lot. Yeah.
So he can get a lot of, and who knows? And I'll say this. So the dude supposed to have did it with him, told on him to get a lighter sentence. Did he get caught already?
Who, Arthur?
No, I'm saying the original dude.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because then if he didn't get caught, he voluntarily. Why would you voluntarily go? Then if you did get caught, he was the one who. My thing is, you shouldn't get a lighter sentence because you committed the crime too. Yeah. At the end of the day, you never know the truth though, because he probably died with the truth. Yeah. Whether he being guilty or him being innocent. There is a huge population of people who have been sentenced to death that was actually innocent. And they were found innocent later on, but it's like, it's too late, bro. These people dead and gone. Yeah, true. Like, what? How you gonna apologize or exonerate them and say, hey, they were, hey, bro, that's a dead man. You know, and like, you know how many people they have came out and said, well, we're gonna exonerate them and they're gonna die. They're gonna be crowned an innocent man. Bro, I died. I'm dead, bro. Like, and it be years later. Like, what can I do? Like, you can't say, well, let's go dig him up and give him life again. Bro, you cut my life off. Yeah. So, that's a crazy story, though. Yeah, to say the least, man. But, hey, y'all spam us up in the comments. Y'all let us know y'all thoughts about it for us in the comments down below. But, until next time. Y'all know how it go, man. I do go by the name DJ New Kid. This is
Sierra.
We are. We out.